Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Cyber Conversations. My name is Josh, and Vern is here today again, and we are going to be talking today about Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, released originally in 1983. This was the third movie to be released. Obviously, I'm assuming everyone here has seen Star Wars, so uh, I don't
So
want to say,
episode 3 then.
yeah, well, the third episode to show up in the theaters, even though it is episode 6. I was going to say, jokingly, spoiler warning, but if you haven't seen Star Wars, really don't listen to this show. Uh, Watch Star Wars, then come back and listen to it. Um,
If
so
you
last,
haven't seen Star Wars, there's no reason why you have the motor skills to activate this podcast and listen to it. So
I
I
actually have
don't.
met
I think if there's anybody out there that's never seen Star Wars before, there's no way. There's no
I've
way they're
met
going
a
to be listening to
few
us.
people. I actually dated a couple of girls at different times, not at the same time. I dated two separate girls who had never, they'd heard of Star Wars. They knew a couple of things, but they'd never actually watched it all the way through.
Can you imagine?
Actually, one of them is someone that you're friends with that I introduced to you over the phone. She knew the basics, she knew the big revelations, but she'd never actually watched anything but the original trilogy, and I showed her the rest of them. Now she's an expert. She's not only seen all the movies, she's seen all of the shows except for the little short ones. Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, those ones.
Understood.
Yeah, and part of it is because she went to Galaxy's Edge at Walt Disney World, and she wanted to know more about it, and so I started
Dang,
telling.
man. So this is a girl that went to Galaxy's Edge and had never seen a Star Wars movie before,
She'd seen the
or
first
she did.
three, and
She did.
she
Okay.
had seen the first three, but it was years ago, and she didn't really remember them at all. She'd never seen the prequels or the
Why was
sequels, or
she at Galaxy's Edge? You took
well,
her,
she
didn't
was
you?
going to Walt Disney World,
Ah,
and
I see.
Galaxy's Edge is
Okay.
part of it. Now, I told her there's going to be stuff there that you may not recognize, and she wanted to learn about it, so she started watching with me on the phone. We would synchronize Disney Plus and watch the movies on the phone together, and she watched all of the movies, and she was, I think, at episode 8 when she came here to go to Walt, or when she went to Walt Disney World. So she was pretty
Got it.
much caught up by the time she went there.
Well, the world has all types.
Yeah,
I
that
don't know.
was,
I think it's not just a nerdy thing. It's like a Western culture thing. It's like you're not. There's a lot of pop culture that I'm not up on. So
yeah.
but it just seems it feels like Star Wars. Maybe that's why we're having this conversation because Star Wars is kind of a unifying pop culture phenomenon with dozens and dozens of hours of sophisticated uh, film
I
to,
actually think,
tell the story. Books, comic books, just thousands and thousands of illustrations. It's a big part of the human corporate imagination.
the reason that I'm doing this show, and I've said this before on some of our other episodes, but in case anyone doesn't know, I believe that Star Wars and most science fiction should be a unifying force. And for some reason, due to maybe parts of tribalism that we seem to be falling back on, and a little bit of main character syndrome, that no one seems to be unifying over something just because I like the sequels and other people are offended by that. And really,
Yeah,
it should be,
that's kind of the spirit of the whole podcast, isn't it?
yeah,
Right at
like
the
the
heart.
whole point of this show, in case you, the listeners, don't know, is that we love Star Wars, even though Vern and I, for example, are very, very different. We have extremely different points of view. We talked 2 weeks ago about A New Hope, and last week about The Empire Strikes Back. And in those two cases, we are very much aligned because we love both of those movies, although not to the same degree because The Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars
We have
movie.
different things to say about them.
Yeah,
But
but
unfortunately, Josh here, along with 90% of you, the audience, are all wrong about Return of the Jedi being the best of all 9 Star Wars movies.
well,
And so therein we have an issue.
but this is the point of the show is we can listen, We can agree or disagree with my point of view, with Vern's point of view, with any of your points of view, and it doesn't mean, oh my God, I'm talking to the devil himself. Okay, how dare he not like the movie that I like the most? That's
Can
not
you
how,
believe
yeah.
they put pineapple on pizza?
You know, I
It
don't
just
eat
gets
pineapple
it
on
gets
pizza,
stupid,
but
man.
I put jalapenos on pizza,
Yeah.
and people think I'm crazy. And I'm like, I would put ghost chilies on pizza if I could get a hold of them.
Yeah, I freely admit that my opinion about Return of the Jedi is in the vast minority, but I have also encountered many people that share my opinion, and it's not wrong. If you feel something, if you believe something, you really should be able to say why. Don't ever let your feelings run over you by just experiencing them and being able to identify them. Being able to identify them is only the first step. The second step is understanding why they are. And so, if you can defend that, then it's still an opinion, but
Mhm.
at least you can make a case for why your opinion was formed that way.
Well, a forewarning, even though I don't know what the numbers are, maybe you're right that 90% of the people like Return of the Jedi less. I don't know. I don't want to say I'm speaking
I'm
for them
estimating.
because I'm definitely not speaking for them, and that's only because there are certain things about Return of the Jedi that I feel that I think a lot of those fans that we're talking about, the ones who still don't like Return of the Jedi as much as the other two, they're not going to see things my way. Some might, but I think my way is not going to be the way they think about it. So they're not going to want me to represent them. Um, and part of, and we'll get into that, but that's part of why I have such a love for the sequels. And I'm not saying they're perfect. I have a lot of issues with the sequels too, but I enjoy them overall. Um,
And forewarning, I have a love for the prequels.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we're gonna be on opposite side of the rails throughout all six movies.
and I'm counting 9 movies.
No, I'm saying as far as prequels
Oh,
and
oh,
sequels
yeah, yeah,
go,
yeah. I'm
of
sorry.
which there are six, you and I will be on different sides of the fence the entire time,
I thought you were saying,
which
yeah, all
which is
six
fine.
movies, the other three don't exist. That was my bad. Um, so yeah, we will definitely talk about that, and you, the listeners, can listen to us disagreeing, but we're not going to be calling each other's names. We're not going to be calling each other names. We're not going to unfriend each other. We're not going to block each other. We're going to meet next week and shake our proverbial hands and continue to talk because that's how it's done. At least that's how I believe it should be done. I believe that's how Vern believes it should be done. And if
That's a
you,
good rephrase.
what?
That's how you believe it should be done. I mean, I agree. That's how it should be done, but it's a lot less dictatorial to say it's how you believe it should be done.
Well, yeah, the whole purpose
So
of
some
this
people love
show.
chaos.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my point is, if you agree with me, if you believe that Star Wars is something that you should be able to talk about, even with a person who disagrees with you, because we are unified in our love of this space opera, then that's the only thing that's important. And the fact that you like Return of the Jedi and I like The Acolyte, how dare I? Like, it's not that. It's just Star Wars. And if you don't like certain elements, that's fine. But we still have lightsabers. We have Pew Pew. We have Luke Skywalker. We have Ben Kenobi, Obi-Wan, whatever you want to call him. We also, if you only watch the original trilogy and you don't like anything else, then I have a whole bunch of characters that you don't have, but you're still a fan. But anyway, that's enough of me waxing poetic on Star Wars. We need to talk about Return of the Jedi.
Let me
So,
ask you a question concerning that, but yeah, just one more thing. If
yeah,
if if somebody is a fan of Star Wars the movie, say they were
you
28
mean
years old when Star
episode
Wars came
4?
out, episode 4,
Yeah.
Star Wars the movie. um, say they were 28 years old when it came out, and it just really impacted them, and it was like a piece of cinema to them,
Hmm.
and they've not the kind of people that watch a whole lot of movies, and they've sort of casually seen the rest of the Star Wars movies, but continuously lost interest because it just Maybe their life moved on. Maybe they had a boring career and became a boring person. I don't know. For whatever reason, if somebody was a fan of the original movie but could care less about the rest of the body of fiction concerning Star Wars, would that person still be a fan?
If they say they're a fan, I say they're a fan. I
Hmm.
don't define fans by a certain limit because I feel like that's gatekeeping. I'm not going to say, oh, you don't like this
Okay.
much, you don't like 50% of
Okay.
Star Wars, you're not a fan. If a person says they're a fan, then I say enough said.
I think that's a bit of a weak answer, just from my perspective. I think that if I was to say I'm an eagle, you wouldn't. That doesn't make me an eagle. You know what I mean? But I would say that he's a fan because he likes Star Wars. He's a fan of Star Wars. He is a Star Wars fan. What are you talking about? Are you talking about like the big Disney label with the million things underneath it? Or are you talking about the movie called Star Wars? He's a fan of that movie. I'm a
Yeah,
fan of Pulp
as
Fiction.
far as I'm
I'm a
concerned,
fan of Pulp Fiction. It's a one movie thing. What if there was 1,500 sequels? If I just love the original, I'd still be a fan. That
exactly.
qualifies me.
Well,
So,
that's what I
so,
said.
so that short circuits the the you're not a fan thing. That's all.
Well, yeah,
That's what I'm getting at.
I say if a person says they're a fan, that's enough for me. I don't need to
Okay. Well,
qualify it with anything. Like, I'm
Yep.
not going to ask them, are
That's
you a fan
fair.
of the
That's
original
fair.
movie only? Are you a fan of the original trilogy? Are you a fan of the original
Yep.
trilogy and that's going to go on forever. If they say they're a fan, and I'm willing to leave it at that, whether it's one movie or all of them.
That's fair. You're more trusting than me. That's all.
Well, I
I would
figure,
say I would say the evidence is in, I mean, what if somebody's just pretending to be a fan? What if they're like a closet fan?
so what? What's that going to do?
What's it do you? That's a good
Yeah,
point. What's it do
like,
you?
like
It's
that's
it's
the like
freaking
to say the
fiction. It's
thing about your
fiction, guys. It's
well,
fiction, people.
that's why your comment about if you said you're an eagle, it won't make you an eagle. So what? Okay, if you say you're an eagle, I'm willing to say, okay, that's fine because it doesn't affect me. It doesn't matter. I don't care. You can say you're a cat and I wouldn't care. Kids do that all the time. What do I care? Be whatever you
Would you
want
bel
because it's not
would you
my,
believe?
who
Wait, wait,
cares?
wait. Would you believe that I'm a cat?
I believe that it doesn't matter. Like, it makes no difference to me. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. I'm not going to,
So if I told you I was a cat, if I was, I'm getting at a point. If I told you I was a cat, you never talk to me again?
no.
Because cats, they don't talk.
If you're talking to me, I'm talking back. And I talk to cats. Well, I don't talk to cats because I don't own a cat. I don't know anyone who owns a cat. But if I did, I would talk to the cat. I'd say, hey, how are you? The cat wouldn't respond, but that doesn't stop me. I talk to dogs.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you are, when you accept that somebody online that you are commenting or chatting or responding to, when you accept that somebody is what they say they are, then the conversation moving forward proceeds from some assumptions, and it's unfair to commit to those assumptions if the signals that are given to you are inaccurate to the actual disposition of the person giving the signals. Therefore, it's going to channel the conversation in a direction that might, collide with some rudeness. And that would have actually been uh, the result of a seed that was planted earlier. That's why I wouldn't just take somebody's word for it. That's why I believe it does matter. It does matter whether you're actually a fan or not, and not just something that you believe that you are. But I also think that it's a much, much more simpler situation because like I just said, if you enjoy the first movie, then you're a fan of Star Wars. And
Yeah, I mean,
if you have nothing but bad things to say about the prequels and sequels, you're still a fan.
yeah, but I mean, none of it makes any difference to me. It's not going to affect my life. Even if a person who's not a fan says they're a fan,
It
how is that going to
it
affect
does
my
if you're
life?
commenting with them,
What?
right? It does if you are affecting if you're commenting with them, if you're having a dialogue with them,
Why?
which is kind of what this whole conversation is about. It's about identifying the ways that we can have more civil dialogue by enjoying the thing that we're all supposed to enjoy together and not criticizing each other for not having exactly the same opinions.
Yeah, but if I talk to a person who's only seen one episode of Star Wars and calls themselves a fan, even though they hated that movie and they actually are not a fan, how is that going to affect anything? I'll just say, well, this is what I liked about it. They'll say what they liked or didn't like, and that's it. Like, it
Well,
doesn't affect me
okay,
either
well,
way.
we'll do that rabbit trail then. So they say that they're a fan, but they're actually not a fan. So you start commenting on Star Wars stuff, and they just start ragging on it because they hate it, and you're crossing your eyes, going, they're really not talking like they're a fan, but I keep having this conversation with them because I'm assuming something that isn't true.
Then I
So
might ask them, are you really a
it
fan?
does affect.
Well, I might ask them, are you really a fan? But as long as they say they're a fan, like, to me, that's it. Like, I have no energy to expend on it. Like, say what you are, and whether it's true or not, I don't care because that is way too much work. I'm just, I'm here to sleep. I'm here to talk when I'm ready to talk, and then I eat and I sleep, and that's what I do all day. It's a wonderful life. That's my life. I wake up, I do a bunch of
Fair
stuff, and
enough.
I go back to sleep.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I don't expend unnecessary energy on telling people what they are or what they aren't or even thinking about it because that's too much work. I'm originally from California. We make laziness an art.
Well, I'm a chronic overthinker, so that could be one of the fundamental differences between us. I don't sleep. I
Yeah,
don't sleep. I work 7 days a week, all day, every day. That's
yeah.
all I ever do. I love it when my brain is going 12 different directions at once. It
Well,
feels uncomfortable to not go 12 different. I sit in the bathtub and my brain goes 12 directions at once. It's just the way I am.
well, I've said this on our conversations like before the show. We have, a little prefab. But I do appreciate the fact that you spend this time talking to us because I know how busy you are. So I hope that everyone who's listening will also appreciate. Vern is one of the busiest people I know. He doesn't have time to do this podcast, and he's making time because Star Wars is important enough to him.
Yeah,
So,
our culture is important enough to me. It's very concerning to me as well as to you, Josh, that you used to have conventions. We still do. You follow me.
yeah.
We had conventions. The word conventions means to come together. To come together over an interest. And so the whole point of Comic Con is that it we these fictional worlds united us. And now, maybe thanks to the internet, maybe thanks to a souring spirit that's descending over the country, I don't know, over the world, a bunch of individual decisions, a bunch of dark people leading each other to be darker. It seems that the very same thing that used to unite us is divided us. It's become more and more and more divisive. So that's important to me. Star Wars is important to me because I'm a professional artist, and Star Wars is loaded with genius and creativity and originality and art and art and art. There's just tons of art. The maquettes, the stop motion, the blue screen, the hand painted mats, the CG in the newer movies, just
The
the
music,
writing, the
everything.
dialogue, the performance, the choreograph. Oh, everything is just art from beginning to end, pouring originality down your throat like feeding you with a fire hose. Star Wars is one of the greatest examples of what I can think of as something that shows you so much information so quickly that you have to go back and watch it 4 or 5 times to catch it all. It's so much information that your brain is still processing some of the background things that you saw while you're trying to comprehend the next scene because it was too fast and you're still processing what happened before. And that's been going on since the very first movie. That, as far as I'm concerned, that's like I call it the Lucas effect. It's something that everybody, that many imaginative movie makers try to mimic, and it's you have to pack a lot of information into each scene to be able to do that. There's so many little subtle, nuanced background things going on in so many scenes in Star Wars where it's like that thing didn't even matter, but there's a whole book written about those guys over there. Oh, there goes one of those droids, another one of those droids. You saw those 2 movies ago, but nobody knows what they're called. Oh yeah, you can find the Kenner toy. It's got a name. It's got a name. It's a main character in a novel written somewhere. It's this interconnected world is so deep, and from the very beginning, there was so much going on in the background that it was just the nerdiness. Like Lucas was a professional nerd way back in the day because he had all of these crazy unreal things in his head, and these little things are all going on in the background, and little costume components and little pieces of technology and things, and it's all part of a unified world, and something that's cool to us,
Yeah,
most of us.
I would have loved to interject, and at the same time, I didn't want to stop you because you're exactly right. So I just let you go on. You said it for both of us. Um,
Well, so
but now
Jedi, a
now I'm going
primer
to
on
talk about
Jedi.
Return of the Jedi. So it was released in
Yeah. So
1983. I don't know.
yep.
Do you want to start us because I know that this is your favorite Star Wars movie, and for
I was just
me,
gonna say, personally, like we all have this idea that when something struck us the right way when we were kids, or something nostalgic that reminds us of our teenage years, or something like that, like there's always a bias, and it's probably true. But Star Wars, the original movie, I did not see for years after it came out. My dad
right, right.
recorded it on an audio tape, and I listened to it. Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back. We voted when we had no money at all to see the movie
You
or
saw
have
it
our
on
fireworks
Fourth
on
of
the Fourth of
July,
July,
right?
right? And then when Jedi came out, we were living like normal people. We had a house in a neighborhood, and my mom and dad both have jobs, and I was in high school at the time. So like I remember that event very clearly, and it was at a very impressionable moment in my life. I was probably 14ish, 13, 15, right in there. I'm not doing the math right now. But so I just want to like put out there that maybe one of the reasons why Return of the Jedi is my favorite is because it made that impact when I was a kid. I'm going to argue throughout the course of this conversation that there are other reasons, and I don't expect everybody to feel the same way. Obviously, most people don't.
Mm. And for me, and I hate to say this, it's not my least favorite, not by a long shot, but it is, if I had to guess right now, I'm probably going to say it's my third least favorite of all of the
Yeah.
Star
Okay.
Wars movies.
All right.
And I
That's too
have
bad.
issues, and I do want to talk about that because most of the time when I say that, the first thing people assume is I'm talking about the Ewoks. And the Ewoks are a problem for me, but it isn't the only problem. There are other things about Return of the Jedi that I don't like that have nothing to do with the Ewoks. And it's going to be the same thing next week when we talk about the Phantom Menace. Everyone assumes I'm talking about Jar Jar because I don't like it. Jar Jar is a problem. It's not the only problem, or he's not the only problem. Um, so, do you want to start by talking about what you loved about it, or do you want me to
Mm,
start by talking about what I
yeah.
didn't like?
Sure. Sure. I will talk about the my primary reason. My primary reason. I'm just going to say it in a way that I think though all those people out there that agree with me will instantly like jive, and all those people that don't agree with me will roll their eyes.
Hmm.
The main reason is not because of particular story points, colors, artistic touches, dialogue, anything like those are all important to me. But like, it, what really matters to me is like the moral direction of the story. And in Empire Strikes Back, just like in Revenge of the Sith, both of them masterfully done movies, but they both end with a darkness like Two Towers. Like, oh, there's no way the good guys can possibly win. They're incredibly outmatched. It's a dark time. The bad guys are winning.
Hmm.
And that's an important part of the story. But in any normal story, that dark time is in the middle toward the end. Like at the beginning of the third act or the end of the second act, you've got 2/3 of the way through the movie, it's darkest before the dawn, and it's
Right.
a really really crushing moment where you really don't understand how these guys are going to win. And so those are important, but they're not supposed to be the end of movies. At least in my simplistic estimation. Return of the Jedi has everything that you were building up to from the beginning of Star Wars. Every single plot point is validated. I mean, the characters say the word complete probably a dozen times in the movie. Um, and in the end, the resolution of Vader, the resolution of Luke as a hero, the resolution of Leia and Han, the resolution of Wedge and Lando, having been survived as heroes. The resolution of the Emperor being dead finally, which presumably was the abolition of the Empire, the destruction of the second Death Star. The good guys win absolutely, and especially in the special editions, which I really love. When the camera goes across the galaxy and like
You
everywhere
see
you
the
look, the Empire
fireworks
is
on,
toppling.
yeah.
The Empire is being pulled down, like it's an utter, complete victory for the good guys. And I, to me, that is the best kind of ending. And that's certainly not my only reason, but I'm just going to come right out. That's my opening salvo. I love Return of the Jedi because it is a resolution to the story, and it's a good resolution. It's a happy ending where the bad guys lose and the good guys win, as it should be.
I absolutely agree with that. And like I have said before, even though Return of the Jedi is not nearly my favorite, that part of the movie I do like. I love the fact that the good guys win. And something that we talked about a little bit last week, I know that Luke was failing at everything in The Empire Strikes Back because it's the low point of the story. I mean, it even starts with that. The very first line of the opening crawl is "It is a dark time." This
Yeah.
is where everything comes to a grinding halt after the momentum they built up with the first movie. The Empire Strikes Back said no. The rebels thought they had this great victory, but they're nothing. They're insignificant compared to the Empire, and that's what we were left with. That's not the reason The Empire Strikes Back was my favorite, and we went over that last
Obviously
week.
not. Yeah.
I do love the fact that the Empire is finally defeated in Return of the Jedi. The problem I had with Return of the Jedi was the execution. And part of it, the one thing that you said that I have to disagree with, and this, I'm definitely not speaking for everyone here, but my own personal take is I don't see Luke as a hero at all. He did one thing that was good, and arguably it was his main mission the whole time, not to defeat the Empire, but to turn Darth Vader back to the light. Which,
Are you saying
yes,
the one good thing he did was defeat his father and then twist in agony until his father voluntarily decided to come to the light side of the Force?
in my own
That's a
opinion,
one thing. Okay,
in
well
well,
then you're
here,
missing half the movie, and
no,
we're
no,
going to get to that
well,
because
yeah.
you are taking a lot of credit away from Luke in that movie. He's a hero through the entire thing. He
See,
is the hero we've been waiting to see him
I
as,
didn't see
and so
that.
you were really let down by that. I get that. Okay,
Yeah.
so but I'm
But
gonna
I
I
figure
definitely
I
am
should
gonna.
explain it because I don't want to
Yep.
just dismiss it as I don't like Luke. This the end of story. My thing is when you sum up what Luke did, he went to rescue Han, but he only did so with the help of his friends, and most of them did the heavy lifting. Leia was the one who killed Jabba.
I don't understand what that means.
Well, like
Jabba didn't need to be killed. Jabba didn't need to be killed. He would have been blown up anyway. Luke did the heavy lifting. What are you kidding?
I
Luke did the
feel
heavy
like
lifting. We're going to the
I
Sarlacc
mean
pit.
the point is we're kind of going in circles here. I didn't feel like Luke was a big hero for doing it. He was part of a team, and that's fine. I'm not dismissing it. I'm not saying he didn't do anything. It's just he wasn't the big damn hero again. He was part of a team of a group of people that were saving Han. Then he went to Dagobah, watched Yoda die, and then went to Endor, got captured immediately. But the big thing, like the thing that he does that really gets to me is the only way he defeats Vader is when Vader starts threatening to go after Leia, that he's going to turn Leia to the dark side. And Luke loses control and wails on Vader in anger and beats
Yeah, he
him.
taps into the dark side a little bit there. Yep,
Exactly. And
just like his
like
father.
exactly what the Emperor wanted. Luke did it. He went to the dark side. He used his anger to defeat Vader. And one of those things that I don't like about the writing, and this is directed at George Lucas directly, is that the Emperor uncharacteristically does something really stupid. Because he never does anything stupid in most of the time we see him. But in this one instant, he does something really stupid. Luke has Darth Vader on the ground. He's chopped off his hand, and he's holding his lightsaber to
He should have
Vader's
shut his
throat.
mouth.
Exactly. If the Emperor
He should
hadn't
have shut
said
his mouth.
anything, if
I've
the
always thought
Emperor
that.
hadn't said anything, Luke would have ended Vader right then and there, and his
That's
journey to the dark
debatable.
side would have been complete. He
That's
stops.
debatable. You don't know that. You
It
don't
looked
know
like
that.
he
I
it
get
lo-
it. I get what you're saying. I
but
really
I
do because I've
see
always felt the same thing. Like honestly, I am not rooting for the emperor.
Yeah,
But I've always thought, man, if you just kept your mouth shut, you probably would have won.
exactly. I look at Luke
I've
when
never saw
he's
that as taking credit away from Luke, though. I've never, for whatever reason, I've never instinctually thought, well, that that takes everything away from Luke. I
I
never thought that.
well, it's just that looking at Luke's eyes, and this is not something I'm saying I'm right and you're wrong. Maybe we just have different points of view. Maybe we see a different gleam in his eyes, or it means something to us or to me that means something else to you. But when I look at Luke's eyes, when he's holding his lightsaber over Vader's throat, he's got murder in his eyes, as far as I'm
Oh yeah,
concerned.
his eyes flash for a frame there, and it's a real expression of rage and aggression.
Exactly. And then the Emperor says, good. And that's what it takes for Luke to be like, wait a minute, the Emperor and I are enemies. If he's cheering me on, I must be doing
There you
something
go,
wrong.
slave.
There you go.
There you
Yeah.
go, slave.
So,
Keep it
so
up. That's exactly what I want you to
yeah,
do.
exactly. So as far
That's, you're
as
not
I'm
supposed to say
concerned,
that.
Luke is an utter failure in that moment. He does
Well,
not pass.
your language is so exaggerated. It's obviously he's not an utter failure.
As far as
Obviously,
he
why are you
failed.
taking that away from him?
He failed to resist the dark side. That was the only
He
thing the
had,
Emperor
wait a
wanted.
minute, he had a moment where he literally almost lost it. And if he hadn't done that, he'd be more of a Superman than a human relatable character. That is something we can all relate to. That moment when we almost lost it, but we didn't. That moment when we almost screwed it all up, but we didn't.
Well, let
You know
me.
what I mean? Like pulling out at the last minute is a very relatable experience for every single one of us,
Well,
coming so close to the fire that we almost get burned.
let me say this. I do apologize. Maybe that was a bit exaggerated. Because I don't want to take this away from Luke. And that is when he realizes that he's doing exactly what the Emperor wants, he does have the strength to throw away his lightsaber and say, "No, I'm never turning to the
Yes,
dark side." That,
probably my favorite moment in the entire saga.
yeah,
That
see,
moment right there.
I appreciate that, but this is the big thing for me. I don't. I really kind of want to go back because I kept saying Luke is a failure in every way, and I don't mean it that way. But what I'm informing is this is why I forgive Luke for what happens later on, and why so many people can't. I think, when he
Wait,
becomes
you
a
mean in the
in the
Disney
sequels.
sequels? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah,
Oh,
I see
well, that's an
this
interesting perspective.
because Luke didn't have the strength, and when he sees the darkness rising in Ben Solo, he didn't have the Emperor there saying,
I
"Good."
see where you're going with that. Let's save that for a future
Yeah, yeah,
conversation,
that's
though, because
when we
that'll
get
get
to the
us off
Last
track.
Jedi. The
But
only
I see
reason
where
I
you're
bring it
going
up
with that.
now,
The one of the big problems that people have is that Luke is this great, untouchable hero, and then all of a sudden he does these, uncharacteristic quote unquote things, and so everybody blames Disney for not,
yeah, you're right.
representing
I
it
definitely
properly. I
don't
see
want
where
to.
you're coming from.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to talk about The Last Jedi tonight. We're going to get there. But I did want to point out this is a big informing moment for me. This is
Yeah,
why my
sure.
whole
That's
perspective on the movie changes and why I think I understand the people who don't like it. But for myself, for my own 2 cents, I love it. I think that is the best thing for his character because of the way he is. We've seen all along he's a rash, reckless, impulsive guy. He is impatient. That's Luke's character. And
yeah.
he does manage to overcome it to a degree in Return of the Jedi. But if it's part of his nature, then it's unrealistic to think he would never have a relapse. That's who he is. So he had it under control for a while, but it's
Yeah.
reasonable to
And we
assume
don't
he
have the
would lose
benefit.
control.
We don't have the benefit of like 30 plus years between the movies and the sequels too, where like what was Luke doing? Was he spending his lifetime mastering his childish, quirks?
Well, I
Because
think,
he is petulant from frame one.
yeah.
He's impatient and sort of whiny, and he is easily wounded. And there's a lot of reasons in the first movie to not, respect Luke.
So
But the miracle that he pulls off in the end is enough to secure him as a legendary hero of the rebellion. He makes one impossible shot, and also as a result of teamwork. And he is forever secured as a legend in the galaxy. But that was just one shot, which I would argue that the Force had more to do with, obviously,
Of
than
course.
Luke
Yeah.
guiding those torpedoes into the exhaust port.
Yeah.
So that it gets kind of supernatural, but
Well, the Force is
uh,
supernatural. I mean, there's no
right,
ifs, ands, or
you can't
buts.
avoid it.
It's a
You
mystical
can't
energy
avoid it.
field. But
Um,
I do feel
but
bad because I didn't.
but therein is the thing where we're talking about this thing happening in Jedi, and like it is a supernatural question. Like when he throws his uh, lightsaber away, there is a defiance to um, hatred and anger in that, at great sacrifice, because he dismisses his one chance to defend himself in front of these two gargoyles. And so that's probably why it's so powerful. It's like somebody saying, being tortured into doing something that's against their nature, and just hearing them go, do what you want. I have to stick to my guns. Well, that's something we all can really respect and sort of hope that we see in the mirror. That it becomes a very moral, spiritual, even religious question. As far as like your disposition. Um,
Well, I do feel bad because I didn't mean to make it sound like I don't think he's a hero at all, because that makes it sound like I think he's a bad guy. I don't. I
it
think
sounds
he's a
to me like
hero.
you've been making this point long enough that it sort of caused you to exaggerate a little bit. So I really do appreciate you pulling back, because we're having a rational conversation, and I know you didn't mean the quite to
He
that
is a
extreme, but
hero. He is a
somehow you've
hero, but I
programmed
don't.
yourself to use language like that, and
Yeah.
I think it's
Well, I
because
think
people
a
have really
lot of
fought you on this point too
I
many
think
times.
so. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of it has to do, like, part of why people don't like what happens to Luke between Return of the Jedi and the later movies is because they're still hooked on the books that came out before Disney acquired Lucasfilms, those books that are now considered legends and they're not
yeah.
canon. And I haven't read all of them. I'm willing to admit that. I have read some, including
There's a lot.
yeah, I have read the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire trilogy. I read it when it first came out. I got really excited, and I was completely disappointed by it. I hate to say that. I know a lot of people are going to hate me for saying that, but I really didn't like it.
Books
Now,
are
I
like
will say
movies.
this.
Everybody has an opinion on them.
I will say this. I liked some elements of it, and many parts of those three books were very exciting. I loved Thrawn, just like everyone else, and I'm very
I love
happy.
the whole Shadows of the Empire trilogy.
Shadows of the Empire, or you mean Heir to the Empire?
Heir to the Empire,
Yeah,
Heir to
yeah.
the
Because
Empire. Yeah,
Shadows of the Empire was something else. Um,
yeah.
I did read that, and I played the games and all that stuff too. Shadows of the Empire, but Heir to the Empire, it was exciting. Thrawn was excellent because he was framed as this huge, excellent tactician, which is something that Star Wars definitely needs. A really formidable bad guy. Darth Vader was that bad guy, and after Vader is gone, there was a vacuum there, and I
Vader
appreciate that.
is directly formidable though. Like Thrawn represents something a little bit more zoomed out.
Yeah,
The
yeah. Well,
threat of
he's
him knowing what you're doing before you do it,
yeah,
and then trapping your fleet in a hopeless, collision.
and I'm very happy that they brought Thrawn into Star Wars canon with Disney stuff because I think he's portrayed excellently. They do
Yeah.
maintain that cunningness, that chess master feel of him. What I didn't like about the books, I didn't like Mara Jade. I think she's a terrible character. I know some people still love her, but the image I still think of is this is an incel's image of the perfect woman. She's a
Well, you're talking about
fiery,
illustrations, Josh. You're not
no,
talking
not
about
just illustrations,
this.
the way she
You're talking about the
behaves.
description in the book.
I'm talking about the way she
Oh, okay,
behaves.
okay,
She's a
okay, okay.
fiery redhead capable of taking care of herself. She was the Emperor's assassin, his personal assassin, sent to find Luke and kill him. And then she falls in love with him and has a couple of kids with him. That's an incel's dream. And that's a, or I'm no, never mind. I'm going to take that back. It's not an incel's dream. It's a prepubescent boy's dream. And I think that's what Mara Jade was made to be. So perfectly happy with her being dismissed from canon. I also didn't like the ending of the book. I thought it ended really abruptly, and it was the most anticlimactic ending I've ever seen since I read Jaws. And I won't get into Jaws because
You
that's
did
complete.
finish it, right?
I did finish it, yes. And
Okay,
that's the
good.
problem. For those of you who didn't read it, it all ends on the last page. The rebels are in defeat almost the entire 3 books, and they only turn it around in the last like 2 pages. Thrawn gets killed on the second to last paragraph. There is no resolution whatsoever. It's just, oh, he's dead. The rebels won. It's all tell, not show, and it's completely uninteresting.
Spoiler
And
alert.
yeah, spoiler alert for those of you who haven't. I mean, it doesn't matter because the books are not canon anymore. Um, and
Well, as we have seen, they can easily be brought into canon.
they
It
could.
does. I mean, this is a whole nother
A
conversation, but
lot of
it does
people
seem
say
like
they
over the next few years, Disney is going to forcefully allow a changeover of management of Star Wars, or throw the towel in and sell it to someone else who
they're
may or
never
may
going to
not
sell
try to
it.
resurrect it.
They're never going to sell it. You know Disney far better than I do, and you know they're never going to sell it.
Well,
Disney's
then they will. Then
they will
if
lock
they
it in a
can't turn it
vault.
around, they
They
will
will
just
lock it in a
deliberately
vault.
have to bury it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
scares me
and that
so
would be a
much.
tragedy, don't you think? Yeah,
That's
I get
what
it. I
scares me.
totally
That's
get
why
that.
I get so annoyed. I try not to get
Yeah,
involved in these
yeah.
arguments on
I
Facebook,
know where you're going with this.
but I see so many people saying they want it to fail. I will never understand that. If the show is on and you don't watch it, it doesn't affect you. Let it be and hope it does well because the next show might be better. If this show does poorly and the next show does poorly and the one after that does poorly, eventually, if Disney sees no money to be made, they're never going to sell it because they would rather die than see another person making money off of a property that used to be theirs. No, they will lock it in a vault until it goes
Well,
public domain. And
and
public
if it
domain,
comes to that, it'll be a matter of PR actually, because if they sell it to somebody else who happens to be a genius and give the people exactly what they want, and that exactly what they want turns out to be something that makes Disney look bad in any way, well then that's something that you
well, yeah, there's
can't
that
allow.
too. But I mean, the point is, Disney's not going to sell it. No matter how badly it does, they're never going to sell it. What they will do is
Yeah,
lock it in a vault until it goes public domain. And public domain, for those of you who don't know, is 70 years after the death of the creator, which means
quite a while still.
whenever George Lucas dies, 70 years after that, chances are no one alive listening to this podcast right now is going to be alive at that point, except for maybe a couple of kids. But you and I, we're going to be long gone before Star Wars enters the public domain. And frankly, if they have to wait for the public domain to make another Star Wars movie, no one's going to care. No one's even going to remember it. And that, I think, would be a major shame. Think about a world that doesn't have Star Wars. Hello?
I'm
Oh,
assuming there are plenty of parallel dimensions out there where Star Wars was never created or where it went by some other name.
yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is if Star Wars gets locked away for the next 70 plus the rest of George Lucas's life years, that's a world without Star Wars, essentially. I mean, what exists will kind of fade into the background. People will forget about it, and it will cease to be.
Well, that won't change what it already is.
No, it won't change what it already is, but I hate that idea that that's what the future is for Star Wars, that it's just going to wink out of existence because people got angry that things didn't go the way they wanted it to. You know,
Well,
again,
hopefully it doesn't.
again, maybe this is an idealistic view that I have, but I like to think that Star Wars is a great talking point to bring people together, to have people having these great conversations about what can be, what has been, what happened in the story, what's going to happen next. These are all discussions that people can have as long as there's a story. If Star Wars goes away, that's another thing that we've lost that brings us together.
Well, we don't want to talk about what might rush into the gap. This is a Star Wars conversation, so I don't want to start entertaining the idea of what the world would be like without it.
No, I'm just saying
Um,
I don't want to know what the world will be like without it. I want Star Wars to succeed. If you don't
but
like a show or a series of shows that have come out recently, I still don't see a reason to hope that it fails. let it be. Hope that it does well. Hope that they get better. Because if they get better, they keep making Star Wars stuff. And if it doesn't get better, we lose Star Wars. Hey everyone, it's Josh here. We have a slight change in how we're doing things. Last week when we did The Empire Strikes Back, we ran out of time. We said that we wanted to keep these videos between 40 and 60 minutes, and at an hour and 5 minutes, I cut it off so that we could wrap it up. But we felt like there was still a lot to talk about. So with Return of the Jedi, we decided to talk until we exhausted the subject. However, we don't want to keep you for that long, so what we're doing is I'm splitting it into three episodes. So this was the first episode. The second episode will appear next week on Monday, and it will run also about 45 minutes long. And there's going to be a third episode as well, because we had that much to talk about when it came to this movie. So I hope that you're enjoying the show so far, and I hope that you will come back next week. In the meantime, please click on the like button and subscribe, and feel free to leave comments. I'm interested in hearing from you. Thank you, and may the force be with you, always.